Hey everybody, it's Lee with Oregon Arboriculture, and I wanted to stop and take a second to talk to you guys and talk about bidding trees and how we go about bidding trees. Just to give you kind of a rough estimate, nobody bids exactly the same. There are a few industry standards, but not everybody adheres to those, and this is a competitive job. So you have to compete with other bids to see if you can get the price that you're looking for. So right now I'm talking about this monster fir tree right here, and I'm going to talk about the price that I'm going to give them for removal. So I'm going to put a little bit of the variables in place and kind of discuss what I'm going to go through as I'm thinking about removing this tree. And then later, if I can, I will catch you guys up on whether we got the bid or whether another company did. I'm going to guess in this situation, we're going to be more expensive and another company's going to get the bid. I don't want to say that, but I just have a feeling based on the neighborhood and based on a few other things I know about this area. So I work all over, I work within an hour of where I live, sometimes a little bit further depending on how much money they're paying me. And right now we're going to talk about this tree, and I will give you some of the parameters I go by. All right, so right away we've got fences all around and stuff like that, but first I'm going to talk about the height. So the usual rate, I'm going to back up so that way you can get most of the picture of the tree in the frame. Okay, so I'm going to think about how tall a 10-foot basketball hoop is. So a basketball hoop's about 10 feet, so it's pretty easy to think about a basketball hoop. And what I'll do is I'll picture a basketball hoop against the base of the tree, like this, and then I'll count up as I go. So we'll say that's 10 feet, 20, 30, 40, 50. And now you have to remember, as you're getting further away from yourself, your arm is getting further up, the perspective is lost, so you have to squinch your fingers together a little bit more to get the same 10 feet. So let's keep doing that. 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, at least 100 feet. And a lot of times I won't count that last 5 feet, sometimes the last 10 feet, because that part's all coming out in one piece no matter what. So now looking at this tree, it's not just one central leader. This is an ex-current tree and should have just one, but somebody topped it in the past. There could be serious problems here, because whenever new growth comes out, it's usually weakly attached. But I'm not just dealing with the one central leader. This is the mature, this is the dominant section. So this is a co-dominant central leader. This is the least dominant of the two and most likely to fall out. But I'm gonna have to work these out separately. So in function, after about 40 feet, this tree is going to be like removing 2 trees at once. So there's going to be almost twice the foliage, almost twice the branches, almost twice the wood after that 40-foot section. So that's what I think about. So now, if going by the regular rates, we'll say it's 100 feet tall, it's $250 per 100 feet for hazardous removal. This is hazardous. There's power lines right here. Power lines that cross right in front of the tree. They're within 15 feet. That's just a house drop, so it's not as integral as this high tension power line up here. So that's the one that I would be concerned about. The house drop, I just don't want to knock it off, because if you knock a house drop off a post, you know, you could be into $1,200 to $3,000 worth of repairs. Just depends on who's doing it. I have some friends who work in the industry, so they're going to do it for a lot cheaper probably. But still, I don't want to have that issue be a part of my price. Oh, we've arrived. Hooty hoo. Okay, so here you can see here the lines. The tree itself extends past the lines, but that's up high enough that that's not going to be an issue. I can easily sweep that into the tree as I'm rigging. The tree is less than 10 feet from the base of the house. So here, they don't need a permit. They may need approval, but they won't have to have an actual permit to remove this tree. They won't have to go through the permitting process. It won't cost them as much money. It'll be much simpler for them to be able to get this tree removed because of the proximity to the foundation. Then I'm going to get in here and look a little bit more. Plenty of access. So I've got a nice double gate right here. There's no parking on the street. So we may have to talk to the neighbor and see if we can use this parking space over here, which, considering most of this tree leans over their house and is likely to destroy their carport, they might be cool with that. But always talk to them, because before I give the neighbors a price, I need to know if I'm going to have full working area, because this is going to be quite a process taking this tree out. So now I'm looking at the base of the tree. That's at least 40, maybe 45 inches across. So it's got a pretty good diameter. This is a fairly nice chunk of wood. This would be really excellent for milling. It is almost perfect. It's very straight. This is Sudatsuga Menzisai. I always mispronounce stuff, so it's probably Menzisai or something like that. I don't really care. Douglas Fir, let's just call it that for now. Or where I'm from, in Idaho, they call these red fir. So it's one of my favorite firewoods. It's got plenty of fuel in it, plus it's got extra saps and terpenes and stuff like that that help it burn. Stuff to look at. This weeping sap here, this light colored trail that comes from up here and weeps down, is a sign of one of two things commonly in this type of tree. It's a stress fracture where the top is misweighted, and in serious storms it twists with the wind too aggressively and it causes an internal fracture in the tree. And that can be really good for firewood. So if you're going for firewood, that is the excellent thing to see. So if I'm going to be firewooding this out, which I would not be firewooding the last 15 feet of it, but if I was, this would be the perfect firewood. This will make an excellent board too, so that's not a big deal. But you can see these branches. Cameras don't do this justice, but to give you an idea, that's easily a 6-inch diameter branch. And there's quite a few of those. There's heavier branches. All this needs to be rigged out. Everything over the roof needs to be rigged out, at least rigged with a sweep, so that way it'll sweep away from the roof. And the proximity is really bad for these top pieces. So once we get way up into the top, we're going to want to chunk it out. That's going to be the best process for getting the wood down. We don't want to dynamically load. Another thing I'm looking at is, look at all this hardware. So they probably had a tree fort at one point in time. This was probably portions of a ladder to get up to the top. That looks like it could be a squirrel feeder. I have no clue. But all I know is there's going to be potentially a lot of hardware in the tree. So in my benefit as an arborist, taking out the last 15 feet, falling it, and utilizing it to be milled in the future is in my best interest, because that's going to be something that's going to provide, you know, more wood, which I always like to see trees being used, and I don't want them just to be burnt up every time, because, you know, this is easily a 90-year-old tree. So I'm taking all this into consideration. I'm walking around the tree, I'm looking at the base, I'm looking at the health of the tree, I'm looking at the size, I'm looking at my drop zone, which is plenty. I can rig almost everything on this tree out into this drop zone right here. If I had a chipper parked over here, it would be really easy to get to. So that's also things that I'm taking into consideration. And then just the overall size of the tree. How many loads is this going to be? This is going to be 2 loads in our trip truck, maybe 3, at least 2, but maybe 3. We don't have the largest capacity trip truck. Ours are a little bit shorter, and that just makes them more maneuverable. So when you see our trip trucks, that back end is only about, it's between 9 and 10 feet long, so it's not extremely long. I've seen ones that are 15 feet and longer, which is, I don't know how they back up anything, because I can barely back up the ones we have. But I like the turning radiuses on the GMC Kodiak 4500s. We really like to use those, and they're really dependable, at least up to 2006. So anyway, back to the tree. Taking all this stuff in consideration, 100-foot tree, codominant, $250 per 10 feet for removal. And if there's any hazards at all, power lines, proximity to the home, proximity to anybody else's property, anything that can go wrong. So what can go wrong is if I drop anything on anything, my insurance pays for it. My insurance goes up, and that's something that I could carry for a long time. So, you know, if you've been doing this for a long time, so I've been doing it for a while, if you don't have insurance claims, you're going to be much happier in this industry. And don't take on something you can't handle. And this is a big tree, but we can handle it. And I feel like I want to do it. So that's another thing. If I didn't want to do it, the smart thing might be to bid it high. Now, that's going to be weird for some people to consider. I'm a general contractor. Why would I bid something higher than I want to do the work for? Well, the reason that contractors do that is it leaves an opening for the next contractor to get a better option, because they'll say, oh man, you're only going to do it for $3,200. The guy before you said like $4,800. So of course we want you to do it. And that gives another contractor the ability to get it done at the price that they choose to do it at. So here's what I'm going to bid this tree at. I got back in the car, I rolled up the window. I don't want the customer to potentially overhear what I'm talking to you guys about, but I'm going to bid this tree for, I would say, $4,800. And that's based on the fact that it's codominant, proximity to the house, power lines, how much wood's coming out of here. They're probably going to want me to remove every piece of the wood, and I know they're going to get a better price because I know this neighborhood. Like I said, when I first pulled up, I've worked in this area for a really long time, and this area is not usually going to give you, you're going to find a lot of competition from other tree guys who are not licensed, bonded, insured, and, you know, a little bit sometimes more reckless. And I don't want them to get work, but at the same time, I know no matter what I bid it for, they could, and I want to make sure that I make a comfortable profit on this tree. I can afford to bring all the people in that I need to bring in. If I need to have an additional operator for a bucket truck or things like that, I can make that happen. So that's just a little bit of the stuff we're gonna, you know, put together just so you can kind of get an idea. But I would bid this codominant 100 and some odd foot Doug Fir for $4,800, based on the lines, based on the proximity of the house, and based on the drop zone and a few other things. But as you know, and as I just told you, I don't expect to get this job. But if I do, I'll be happy. So check in next time, and we'll go over a couple more things, because I want to start revealing some of the little, you know, minor intricacies of the industry, so that way people who are just getting started can have kind of a better idea. And if we do get the job, I'll try to make sure I put in a little bit of the takedown and discuss some of the ways that we're going to do it. So we have this couple old school climbers. They have different ways of doing stuff, and we want you guys to see that stuff. So subscribe, and next time we'll talk about some more stuff. Check in next time.